Yeah, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Had a little bit of a rough night, but that's why we're here.
That's why you're here. Hey everyone, so this is a special sleep one-on-one consult that I did and wanted to share with you. It's about a 13-month-old with unpredictable sleep patterns and a mom who would like to get a more predictable sleep routine. If you're interested in doing a one-on-one sleep consult to talk through the specific issues that you're facing with your child, you can go to drb.show/sleep-help to find a time for us to chat. Keep up the good work. Okay, I read through what you wrote, but hold on, let me do this really quick, just as kind of a, this actually helps get the audio all lined up, because otherwise it gets a little wonky sometimes.
Okay.
So, start at the beginning. Tell me about what's going on.
Okay. So he hit like 4 months and I was
Okay.
like, okay, he's just having the sleep regression. But then he slept good for like 2 weeks. Like he only woke up like one time at night. And then all of a sudden he just really started, wanting to be up every 2 hours, sometimes hour and a half. And
Okay.
that pretty much lasted up until now. Occasionally I'd get, like a 4 or 5 hour stretch at the beginning, like say he's in bed at 7, then, 11, 12, he'd sleep until, but then after that, it would be every 2 hours, but it's very random. It's not like there's a day that we've been traveling and he sleeps better or we've been more active. It just seems like he just does it randomly.
Okay.
Last night I tried his pack and play because I have a crib that's, I guess it's breathable. And so it's more like a hammock kind of. And I thought,
Okay.
well, he sleeps decent in our bed. And so
Mhm.
I thought maybe he just needed a different surface. And so I tried the pack and play and literally he was up every hour.
Oh, geesh. Okay.
Yeah.
So the pack and
So
play is not the solution,
no, not at all.
apparently.
And even our bed's not really even the solution because sometimes he won't even sleep in our bed. He'll still go
Gotcha.
like 2 hours. I won't be able to calm him down by just talking to him or rubbing his back or anything like that. I do have to admit, first time mom, had miscarriages before him, didn't probably let him fuss or cry very long before I'd pick him up.
Totally. I get that.
And so I feel like my anxiety got better, but then now the lack of sleep, my anxiety's back again. And so because of that, I only let him fuss for like probably 5 minutes, max maybe 10.
Okay.
And that's on a very, very rare occasion. So I started watching your videos and I was like, okay, this is going to be perfect. So I made sure he had a clean diaper. He was fed. And then
Okay.
if he was even a little bit awake when I laid him down, he sits up, he arches his back, he starts fussing. So I would just be like, Paxton, it's time to go to sleep. It's time to go to sleep. And I wouldn't touch him. But then I tried even rubbing his back, that kind of stuff. But then I end up just having to pick him up.
Gotcha.
When I pick him up, he arches his back, he throws himself all over the place. Every once in a while, I can just rock him kind of back to sleep or just like jostle him back to sleep and then lay him back down. But again, he's like pretty much sound asleep when I lay him back in the bed.
Gotcha. And how
And
old
I
is he
apologize
now?
because my
Sorry.
husband's out of town, so I'm going to have to like be going back and forth, grabbing him and keeping him out of the dog bowl and stuff.
Totally. No, I understand. Because is he 13 months now?
He is, yes.
Okay. Because we have a 13-month-old at our house too. So
You
I
do?
totally get the dog bowl thing. Yes. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Our youngest. And I get where you're coming from too. As you said about being a first-time mom and like not wanting to let him fuss and everything. Like we, are at the point where it's like, okay, we need to, 12 months old, you really don't need bottles anymore to go to bed. But that's something that like we're still holding on to because we just like that cuddle time with Gloria and like
Sure.
don't want to give that up. So I totally get where you're coming from with that. And so it sounds like you've been trying a lot of different things and it's been difficult to figure out exactly like what is going to create that sweet spot where we're able to get him to go down, sleep well, and have more than just like a good night's rest, but the confidence that tomorrow night's going to be good as well. And the nights going forward from there are going to be like reasonable nights, rather than just like a crapshoot of, okay, we're going to try this. And then he's up every hour and, oh my gosh, what's going to happen tomorrow night? I'm sure that's a point of frustration and anxiety provoking too.
Yeah, I feel like I've tried everything that I can possibly think of, from, the temperature to what he's wearing to how we go down and what we eat at nighttime. And, yeah, so I've kind of just given up, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to nurse you and we're going to get some sleep. And
Right.
I don't want to have to do that forever. And obviously, like I said, my anxiety is a lot worse because I'm not sleeping. So
Totally. Yep. Because all those things add up. And it's like, well, let's change this variable. Well, maybe this variable is wrong. Or maybe last night it didn't work because, this specific thing. So it's like a science experiment where you change everything every
it
time. And
is.
it's still like, it's tough to know what's actually like positive things and what are negative things and what's making the difference.
Right.
Can you walk me through what your like nighttime routine looks like after, dinner or whatever like that? Just kind of briefly what you guys do between the end of dinner time and then when you lay him down for sleep for the first time at night.
Sure. So after, dinner, we'll have, his real food dinner. And then we usually do some quiet play or some reading, and then get into pajamas,
Okay.
read a few books. If my husband's home, he'll read a couple of books to him. And then I put him in his little sleep sack that we've had him in for, gosh, I don't even know how long, probably 6 to 8 months, maybe even longer than that. Cause that just seemed like a routine that he liked. We'd lay him, down, put him in his sleep sack. And then usually, even if we ate, between 5 and 5:30, and it's like between 7 and 7:30, usually he wants to nurse. Like, I can't just like walk around or just lay him in bed. So I'll nurse him. Come here. I'll nurse him. And then, like I said, usually he's asleep, or if I've tried to, get him so that he's a little bit awake, then I usually fight getting him back to sleep if he's awake.
Gotcha.
Some nights, obviously, we don't do a bath every night, but, on bath nights, usually the bath is in between when we finish eating and when we start reading books.
Okay.
But we're pretty religious on, what we do at nighttime. Just because I felt like, routine helped, but then it kind of quit helping. It's all right.
And
go ahead.
What time do you put him, like you go through your bedtime routine, bath if it's bath night, and then jammies and reading and nursing. What time do you usually put him down to bed? Like, or what time do you usually like say, okay, he's asleep? When does that happen?
Usually between 7:30 and 8.
Okay. Awesome.
I've been trying to go closer to 7:30, but occasionally he won't take a good nap, and then finally he's just so exhausted that he'll go to sleep at like 3:30 or 4, which is awful. But then usually 5:30 he's awake, but then he doesn't want to go to sleep until, between 8 and 9 because he took that nap. But I try to avoid that, but there's just some days that he just refuses to nap. And so I have to have something out of him, or else I can't even get anything done, so I just let him take that nap. But again, between 7:30 and 8.
Okay. And then you say, okay, he's asleep between 7:30 and 8. And then when does he usually start like the waking up? I know it can be variable, it sounds like, and it can be every hour, but on a typical night, what time are you up with him again?
Typically like between 10:30 and 11.
Okay. And then it sounds like sometimes it's every hour thereafter the rest of the night, or every few hours?
Every few hours, yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, last night was a weird night. He's usually not up every hour, but it is usually every couple of hours. Okay. And then he's up at 5 and like not wanting to go back to sleep even if I nurse him. So
His
it's like
starts
long
at
night
5.
and he's up early.
Yeah, he's read the 5 a.m. Miracle book or something like that, and like realizes how great it is to be up at 5.
And I mean, I was like, okay, I'll just nurse him at 5, and I'll nurse him, and then he just pops up and he's like, okay, I'm ready for the day. So
right, he just wants to play.
But then like usually 2-3 hours later, then he's already tired and he wants another little nap. And it's usually only like 45 minutes. But I'm like, this isn't a good habit to get into. You should sleep until 8 or 9 or something, and then we won't have to do this.
Our kids are early risers too. Like when parents tell me, oh, they slept until 8:30 or 9, I'm like, that is never in our entire 10 plus years of parenthood of 5 kids. No kid in our house has ever slept in that late. So I get where you're coming from, but it would be nice if you could like anticipate it, even like 6 or 7, and then have fewer stretches overnight. And I think, at this age, you just hope that, okay, we're going to get this figured out so that when we're awake during the day, we're not getting fussy and tired, like right when, our day is typically like a normal day is starting, and then have to fight naps all day and wonder what it's going to look like tonight as well.
Right.
And then it sounds like, and from what you've said and what I've seen on camera here, that he's just quite a normal developing 13-month-old
He
and
is.
eats solid food at the table and throws food on the floor and everything like
Oh,
that.
yes. Yes. The only thing he doesn't do is he's 13 months and he still doesn't crawl.
How else? He moves around other ways?
He does. Yep. He scoots himself around. And we've been doing some physical therapy appointments to see if, we can kind of work on some strength and stuff. But otherwise, he's very healthy.
A lot of kids will even like skip crawling and they'll move to like cruising around or finding other ways to scoot and move their way until they like stand up and start walking. And then they learn crawling like after the fact,
that.
It seems.
That's what I've heard, which is so absurd to me. But, and of course, I've been stressing about that, but
sure.
I feel like he's a healthy kid. I have to just let him do it because he's a very chill kid. Like for as little as he sleeps, he's a very good baby. I mean, he really is. So, and of course I say that.
Our third did the worm everywhere until he started walking. He never crawled, and it was just like a thing to learn for nostalgia's sake afterwards. It's like, oh, I could crawl if I wanted, but I'd do the worm basically. Okay, and when you put him down to sleep at night, you said that you usually nurse him to sleep, lay him in your bed until he's asleep, and then move him to his crib. Is that how it's working usually?
It's not every night. There's most nights I can actually lay him in his bed, but he's sound asleep. It's just occasionally that if I try to get him a little bit awake when I lay him down, that then it's harder to get him back to sleep. And so then I end up having to just lay him in our bed. And it seems like if I go straight to laying him in our bed, then he's happier. And then he'll literally turn over. I don't have to touch him. I don't have to sing, talk, anything. And then he'll just go to sleep. Gotcha. And then once I think he's solid asleep, then I put him back into his crib.
Gotcha. I think okay, that makes sense. I understand kind of what things are looking like right now. What would it look like if if say in a month from now you say, oh, he's a great sleeper? What would that actually mean in terms of going down to bed, waking up through the night, waking up in the morning? What would that look like to you?
I guess to me, I would be happy if it was one time a night.
Okay.
Ideally, I would like to get to the point where he's sleeping the whole night. But even just one time a night, I think would be beneficial to me, and not, waking up, right away. Sleeping straight for 6 or 7 hours and then waking up if need be,
Gotcha. And Megan, how do you feel about the idea of letting him cry?
I guess I've never been real great with it, or at least not very long, because he never took a pacifier from the beginning. I was terrified to give him a blanket or anything to snuggle with. And so because I'm his security, it's hard for me to be okay, well, you don't have a blanket or anything that you like, but just cry it out and we'll move forward, So I wouldn't say I'm real comfortable with it. Now, if I lay him down right away, he's just fussing, and not necessarily crying. I'm okay with letting him fuss for a little while.
Okay.
But then again, I think until I'm sleeping better, my anxiety kicks in, and then I give up and I just go get him.
Gotcha. Well, okay. I have a couple ideas. I think I'm going to share with you first what's going to be the fastest way to get to your goal of one time wakening or no times wakening per night. And then I think I'll share with you the way that I think that you'll want to start to do it, and then maybe transition once you see how things work to the quick and dirty route to it.
Okay.
The quick and dirty route, which works and is totally safe, and I promise you that when you go back in the morning to get him, he will smile and he'll give you a hug and he will love you, and he won't rob liquor stores when he's 16 or anything like.
Oh, good.
I mean, he won't rob liquor stores when he's 16 because of this, but I'm sure he'll turn out better than that no matter what we do. Is continue with your super normal routine, which sounds like you're doing everything right with reading, with having time to just kind of cuddle and feed. If once you go through that routine, which routines do help and they make a huge difference because he knows what to expect and he's primed for going to sleep. If you do that normal routine and then feed him, and it's fine if he falls asleep, because who doesn't like it when your baby falls asleep on you? That's kind of a nice, cuddly, warm, heartwarming moment. Then what you do is the next step before you lay him down in his own crib, in his own room, is wake him back up. And that can look like changing his diaper to make sure he's dry. That can look like, playing with his toes or squeezing his leg, just so that he's awake. And then you can give him some soothing words as you lay him down in his crib. And then he's looking you in the eye, and you wave night night and say good night, I love you. And then you exit the room.
Okay.
He will fuss. And he might get upset, especially because he's a big boy now, and he will, he might even stand up, or, crawl around a bit. Eventually, he will go to sleep. And then his brain will have that lightning moment of, I can fall asleep without being held. I can fall asleep without being in mom's arms. I can fall asleep without being in mom's bed. And that will kind of start to cement in his head, okay, I can fall asleep on my own. You'll do that, and then he'll eventually fall asleep. I promise. I even had a mom that was telling me the other day that her similar age, 13-month-old, was standing up and sleeping, like standing and then nodding off, and then like laying standing until he woke himself back up because he started to, eventually he went to sleep. But there are some kids that are quite persistent, but they do go to sleep. Throughout the night, then when he wakes up, because he'll still have those nighttime wakenings at first. What you're going to do is same sort of thing. You can feed him, and then put him back to sleep again, awake, and lay him down awake again. At 2 a.m, you say night, night, and you leave the room.
Okay.
That approach, and if you do that for 3 nights in a row, I think you'll probably be done with any concerns, and we'll probably be near this goal of once per night or no times per night feeding, because very quickly, repetitively, he will learn, because every time that we're laying him down, he's awake. Every time that you put him down, he will get faster and faster at falling asleep on his own, to the point where, this is, just like the bedtime routine sets us up for, okay, we're going to do our final feeding and then I'm going to fall asleep. The bedtime routine then includes, I'm going to lay down in my crib awake, I'm going to wave night night to mom, and then I'm going to go to sleep. And that will just kind of be part of his nighttime routine.
Okay. And when you say let him, sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Oh, sorry. Once he learns I can fall asleep on my own, then he will learn I can go back to sleep on my own. Because right now the cue is I get fed or held back to sleep or put in parents' bed to go back to sleep. But once he learns, okay, I can fall back asleep on my own, then really like a 13-month-old won't need any nighttime feedings or nighttime liquid or anything like that in order to sleep through the night. It's something that his brain has just learned and been cued for a while, that when I wake up, I get fed back to sleep. And so everybody wakes up throughout the night. That's just a normal, thing. Like you and I wake up throughout the night. Our brains put us back to sleep if there's not somebody screaming and needing us. Then we just go back to sleep on our own. We don't remember all those wakenings. In the same way, he will wake up. His brain will be used to going back to sleep on his own, and he'll just fall back asleep. So he won't even remember I woke up at 3 a.m. and I watched the alarm clock for a while, and then I went back to sleep. He'll just cycle through his sleep cycles like normal. Right now, every sleep cycle, he's waking back up, and then, okay, somebody's got to help me fall back asleep. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And so it doesn't matter that he doesn't have a pacifier or something to like cuddle him. He'll just realize, okay, I'm safe. This is where I went to sleep. I'll just go back to sleep.
Yes. And if you want to, once they're that age, once they're over 12 months of age, I think it's fine to give him like a little lovey or something. Even if he doesn't really take to it, you can just put it in your crib, and that can be another part of the cue that, okay, it's time for sleep. You got your little monkey here next to you. You go to sleep now. And, in the middle of the night when he wakes up and you're cueing him back to sleep, that can be the thing that, here's your monkey again. And that can just become part of it. I mean, you don't have to make it overly complicated or very elaborate. Because then, when he's carrying his monkey around, you're searching for that at 3 a.m. to help him find that. So the fewer the better. But if that seems to help, then that's totally fine. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I started doing a little something like that. And he pretty much just picks it up and throws it over, like, away from him. So it's not really like it's working. But, for me, it makes me feel like, okay, well, at least he has something to cuddle with. But I guess my one question is, if he does start to fuss and he sits up or stands up, that kind of stuff, I've left the room, I have his monitor on, but is there a certain point where you should address it? I mean, if we're talking like, I don't know if I'll be able to handle 30 minutes, but I mean, do you think he would fuss up to 30 minutes, cry? Because it seems like he'll, sorry, I have no idea what happened.
No, you're totally good. It cut out and then you got right back on. So,
Okay.
you were saying like if he cries for more than 30 minutes, that's where I lost you.
Yeah, I guess, letting him fuss, I'm okay with like letting him fuss, but then if he starts to get to the point where it's like crocodile tears, he's crying, do I need to address it, or do you suggest literally just letting him cry it out until they fall asleep so that he has to get used to that?
So the fastest way to do it is just to let him fuss and cry it out until he falls asleep on his own. And all the studies that have been done over the many, many decades of sleep research show that it's totally fine to do that. It doesn't harm him from a psychological or a more emotional or connection standpoint to do that. And so the
Okay.
fastest way is, even if he's sitting up, even if he's scooting around or throwing things out of his crib, eventually he will go to sleep on his own. The first night, it might take 45 minutes. It might take 60 minutes, something like that. But he will
Okay.
do it on his own, and he will still wake up and smile at you and give you a hug in the morning. And
Okay.
then from most all parents that I talk with, see maybe the second night is about the same. Usually it's less time, but the third night, fourth night, it gets progressively shorter because he realizes, okay, this is the new routine, is I go to sleep on my own. So why do I need to fight it for so long when I already know the end result? So that's kind of the fastest, most streamlined way to do it.
Okay.
But I want to share with you the more gentle approach too, because a lot of parents like to start with the gentle. They see a little bit of a win, and then they're like, okay, we're going to move to the full speed ahead, cry it out, because that will work things the fastest. The two approaches that I think are most helpful, if you're going to kind of do it the more gentle approach, which certainly works, it just takes a little bit longer to have the success. One is you go in and you put him down just as we discussed, but then you go back in 5 minutes later. You don't pick him up, but you can comfort him. You can return his monkey or lovey or whatever it is to him, and then say night night, and then leave the room. And then you're going to expand the amount of time each time. So you might start with 5 minutes, and then go in and just kind of give him some comforting words, and then 10 minutes the next time, and then 15 minutes. And then eventually one of those times he will fall asleep. And I see that work well for parents, and a lot of parents prefer to do that just because it relieves a little bit of the guilt and anxiety that you're going in and checking on him and kind of reassuring him. It works. It usually just takes a little bit longer to take effect. And then when you do it in the middle of the night, you still have to kind of do the same approach too, which then is just a lot of up and down when you're trying to get sleep in between.
Okay.
So that's another approach. And then you can kind of meld that with, okay, eventually, we're going to wait, 30 minutes to go in. And then eventually he'll just kind of go less than 30 minutes to where he passes out and goes to sleep on his own. So that's a more gentle approach. The other gentler approach that you can do is instead of like a time wise, just a physical distancing wise. So you're going to put him down to sleep, and then you're going to, sit down in his chair and stay in his room until he falls asleep on his own. And then you're going to kind of linger by the door, sit on like what I would do is I'd bring my AirPods with me and I would listen to an audiobook or something like that while I just sit there. And you're going to progressively move further away from his crib. So, the first night you might kind of be on the floor by him. The second night you're a foot or two further. The third night you're kind of near the door. The fourth night you're in the doorway. The fifth night you're in the hallway, and you're just kind of eventually spacing it out. And that works well for older kids too, because they see you and they know that you're nearby, but then they learn that coping skill of, okay, mom is progressively further away until she's down the hallway, and I can just do it on my own.
And so you're not necessarily talking, you're just kind of being there, and then just kind of being in the rocker and eventually just moving yourself away, but not talking to him.
Not talking. I wouldn't do a lot of reassuring or things like that, because then that kind of just cues him to keep asking for more of those things.
True.
So I would just maintain radio silence during those moments if you can. Sometimes that's harder for parents to kind of just sit there and like be so close without doing anything. So some people don't like that approach, because you kind of just have to like sit there and let them work through it while you're watching them. And I would encourage you, with regardless of which approach you do, not to watch the monitor the whole time, because that just makes it harder not to go in. When you see that, you can spot check the monitor to see, okay, it took him 31 minutes this time. And then, okay, it took 15 minutes the next time, but I wouldn't keep the monitor on at all times, either visually, definitely not visually, but definitely not, I wouldn't do it audibly either, because otherwise you'll just kind of hear that and it will just make your anxiety and guilt grow.
For sure.
But I think what you'll see with whichever of these approaches, and I'm going to have Natalie kind of write this up so that you have the different approaches written out for you a little bit
Sure.
And she'll send you this recording as well so that you have this to rewatch if you forget
Okay.
or are just tired, because you're probably tired right now.
Right.
I think what you'll see is if you look at the total time of him being awake or being fussy or crying, that we're going to consolidate that down, and you're going to say, okay, we can either do this for a week and have 97 total minutes of crying, fussing, versus we can spread this over months and months and months, and we're actually like having small snippets of time crying, but it's actually going to be like 1,400 minutes of crying, because
right.
of so many more episodes. So we're just kind of consolidating that down to help his brain learn faster that I can fall asleep on my own, and then I can stay asleep on my own, and I can go back to sleep on my own.
And I've never thought of it like that, but that's a really good point, because truly he does spend more time waking up, fussing, crying, and then going back to sleep than if we were to just let him do it more at the beginning. And then hopefully, like you said, he'll learn to then wake up and not necessarily fuss and cry and need me, but then go back to sleep. So that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's in the when you're in the weeds of it, it's like, okay, I got to stop this crying for this moment. But if you look at, if you take the cumulative amount of time of crying, fussing, frustration, and then the lack of sleep for you, I mean, I think those things, the calculus is very favorable for getting it figured out. And it's easier to do it with a 13-month-old than a 15-month-old, than an 18-month-old, than a 5-year-old. And it's pretty solvable. Yeah, it should take less than a week total for all of this. So,
well, I think,
and then you'll get good sleep too, and then your anxiety will likely improve because you're getting the rest that you need and the confidence that, okay, tonight I know that I can stay up and watch Tiger King because I'm going to get some good rest tonight, because I know he's not going to be up every hour, and I don't need to like try and squirrel away every moment of sleep that I possibly can. I can indulge and spend time doing the things that I like.
Yep, because that's exactly how it is. I'm like, okay, it's 8:30. He's asleep. I got to go to sleep.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
You're just like taking naps throughout the night to try and squirrel away any moment that you can. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think those 3 approaches, I feel like they totally sound reasonable. I think I will have to probably go a little gentler to start.
Yeah.
But then absolutely, I think, that'll help to get him where we need to be. So I'm very excited to try. I guess I had started doing it more of just like waking him up and then laying him down. And then I addressed things probably too quickly. So I think with allowing him to do a little bit more fussing and crying, probably, at least I'll address it a little bit, but not pick him up, and then work on, working towards the harder approaches.
I think you might just not even need to get to the harder approaches, because if you do this and he's so consistent, like kids love consistency, they love routine. And I think you'll see that this doesn't take very long to kind of get a total handle on his sleep issues. And then you can just move on to chasing him around during the day and go from there.
Okay. Well, that sure sounds great to me.
What else can we talk about?
I guess my biggest thing was, the nighttime stuff. So I feel like the things that I try for nighttime, once he's doing that at nighttime, then hopefully that will then work for naps too, because he'll sleep for like 30 or 45 minutes in his crib. But then if I don't go and pick him up and then either rock him back to sleep or walk around with him and get him back to sleep, then he will not take like a nap at all. And so for my sanity, I have to have a nap. And so I'll usually end up holding him sometimes just to get like a 2-hour nap. But again, then I get nothing done. So like I said, the approaches that you gave me for nighttime, I think I'll be able to then take into nap time, or he'll be so used to it that nap time, he won't even do that, I guess.
I think you'll see the latter one, but I think that both, yes, that's exactly how I do. I would approach nighttime first, get that going well, do whatever it takes to get those naps during the day. And then once nighttime's going well, the same approach will work for naps. And you might not even have to do anything for naps, because he's just used to the same, small routine that he'll just do it on his own.
Sure. Awesome. Okay. Yep. That was my biggest thing, is nighttime and naps.
Awesome. And one other thing that people often ask about too is like, if he were to, get really good at it, but then have the times where he, 30 minutes into sleep, he wakes up and starts fussing again. I would let him work through that too, because those are usually just kind of like sleep cycle things where if you go in and intervene, then you start over. But if it's just been 30 or 40 minutes since he went down and we know he's not hungry, then I would just keep just let those things ride and continue on.
Okay. All right. Well, I got
Awesome.
some work ahead of me, but I think that we can get there.
You can totally get there. It won't take too long either at this age. So, well,
Okay.
maybe I'll check in a week or two. We'll send you the little action guide that has kind of everything that we talked about. We'll send you the recording so you can watch it again, or let your husband watch it.
Sure.
And then check back in a week or two and hear how things are going.
Okay. That sounds wonderful. I sure appreciate your time and all that you do for everyone.
Oh, you bet. It was a pleasure. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks. I'll sure try. Bye.
Okay, so I hope that was a helpful interview for you to see. And if you would like to do a one-on-one sleep consultation, if you go to drb.show/sleep help, you can find a time to sit down and talk through whatever the specifics are of your issue. Not only do you get our discussion, but you get an action guide that follows up with it so that you have a plan in place, and you get a copy of the recording for yourself too, so that you can work through these things and remember what we said, because oftentimes parents are a little bit tired and sometimes it's tough to remember everything that we talked about. So drb.show/sleep help if you would like to schedule one. Keep up the good work.